Welcome to another Tactical Tuesday, Fearless.
Hey, Fearless family. Welcome. Really nice evening here. I feel like getting under a cozy blanket and just wrapping
Sitting
up.
by the fire.
Sitting by the fire, yeah. So welcome. We've got a topic that we've heard a lot about lately, which is why we added it in here today, is that a lot of people are kind of confused as to what is an LOI or a letter of intent. When do you use it? What is it really for? Is it legal? Is it binding? If it isn't, what's the point of it? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and really just the main meat of it all is that it actually completely changed the trajectory of us and locking down joint venture partners. It was a tool that not only helped them, but helped us dramatically. So we're going to go over all the details of it today. Like Tiff said, what it is, when to use it, all that kind of stuff. And most importantly, two main points. Points number 5 and 6. We have 6 points to share today, guys. Points 5 and 6 is how it can give you confidence and how it can solidify a joint venture. So we're going to get into those. Those will be point 5 and 6. But super cool document. And it's very, very simple. We're going to go over also what you should have included in yours, all that kind of stuff.
So say hi, guys. Adele, hey, we're good. We're great. Greg just said it's windy here, but I think it's like beautiful. I feel like this is like
Is it windy? It was super windy last night.
Yeah, it was craziness. So, hey guys, welcome. Saying hi from across the country here, Adele in Montreal. These guys, Mike and Julie, the ROI guy from Ottawa, Jim from BC. So yeah, hey guys, welcome. Hey Kelly. So guys, how many of you guys have heard of an LOI, but you're not exactly sure? Hey Jen, you're not exactly sure when and where you should use it. Am I wrong? Is this something that people are clear on, or do we need some clarification on it? Also, if you're watching on the replay, please let us know if you don't mind. Just type in the thing, just say replay, just so that we know, we can kind of keep track of how many people are watching this afterwards. We're starting to be able to go back in and make sure that we're not missing anyone's questions. So we were really good at that at the beginning of doing these, but we have kind of lost that a little bit. So we just want to make sure that we're not missing anything. So if you don't mind typing that in on the replay, that would be great.
Awesome. And if you're watching this from YouTube, join us in our Fearless group, because it's in our Fearless group where we can interact on a live basis with you, where we can answer your questions, where we can feature your comments and that sort of thing. So if you are watching this on YouTube, then join us in Fearless Facebook group, and that's where all the action happens.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You bet. I saw Sarah on here from out in Ontario, but I like to think of you from Newfoundland, so I'm just gonna say you're from Newfoundland instead. So anyways, welcome guys. Happy to have you all here. So
Eileen, I'll just you have a question. LOY. It's actually an LOI, and it stands for letter of intent. And so it's just a little document that we're going to go over today. And this little document can do so much. It's very, very powerful in just setting things straight, letting us know what somebody else's intent is, and them knowing what our intent in this joint venture partnership could be. So we're going to get into the details on that.
Grant, lean on investors, learn over investing. That's awesome. See, good thing you guys say stuff, because we just think, what's an LOI? Good that you make us clarify. So here's a question for you. So here's what we're going to cover today first. So kind of go through what we're going to cover. We're going to cover what is an LOI, or a letter of intent, what it isn't, because we hear, a lot of things that are not quite cracked, when to use it, what to include in your letter of intent, and then the less tangible, but probably most important things are, 1, how it gives you confidence.
And you know what, we can tell a story on that like completely changed our ability to get joint venture partners, is when we actually use this practical step. So we'll talk about that too.
Yeah. So point number 5 is how it gives you confidence, and then how and why it helps you to solidify those joint venture deals. So we're going to go through all 5 or 6 of those points. I can't count. But before that, I kind of want to get a feel for what you guys, I love like myth busting. It's just kind of my thing. So tell me guys, what's true or false? And just type in a T or an F. True or false, a letter of intent is a commitment by both parties.
So true or false?
Just
Put it in the
a T
comments so we can see it. What
or
do
an
you
F.
think? Is a letter of intent a commitment by both parties? Throw it in the comments. Don't worry about being wrong. Don't worry about being right. We're just curious as to what your thoughts are, and then we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, got one signed today. Someone says, whoever
Oh, awesome.
This is, don't know who you are, but yay, congrats. That's awesome. And Solimar, yes, we're going to answer these questions in all of our content. If at the end we didn't do it clear enough, you can ask us, but I think we'll have all your answers for you.
So a lot of
T,
F,
question
T,
mark,
T,
T.
F, T, F, F, T, T. So like both sides are being represented here.
Pretty much even. And that's why we are doing this, is because there's just so much confusion. So again, the question was, is it a commitment by both parties? So
what's the answer, Tiff?
the answer,
Drum roll.
Are doing the answer now? I was going to do it after all of them.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
No, whatever.
Do it now. Okay, do it now. So the letter of intent is not a commitment by both parties.
So false would have been correct.
It is false.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So I'll just go on to the next one. Is an LOI a legal document? So true or false? T or F? Just T or F. Is it a legal document?
A letter of intent.
A letter of intent. Is it a legal document?
Now, it is a document that both parties sign, right? So does that make it a legal document? Is it a legal document? That's our next question. So throw it in the comments. I'm curious to know what you guys think about that. True or false, T or F. It looks like most people are saying false for that one.
Interesting.
That it's not a legal document. Okay.
Awesome.
So the first question was whether it was a commitment by both parties. The second question was whether it's a legal document or not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was a trick question, which is why the answers are so kind of all over the place. But good to get us thinking about it. So it is a legal document.
So the answer is true.
It's true.
It's a legal document.
However, it's not binding. So it is a legal document. It is a trick question. You can use it, and a lot, like I just had someone say to me the other day, well, we signed the letter of intent. I mean, that's a legal document. And I'm like, yes, it is a legal document, but it is not binding. They don't have to follow through on it. It's not binding. So trick question. The answer there was true. It is a legal document. However, the caveat and the reality part that we actually need to know is that it's not legally
So
binding.
if you guessed false, you're pretty darn correct too. So,
exactly. Yeah, you totally are. And actually, we're going to talk a little bit about a case out in Ontario that kind of talks about what would perhaps make a letter of intent binding, which is really good for us to all know as well. Okay, last true or false. The LOI sets a foundation that both parties can count on. Does it set a foundation? True or false? T or F?
T or F.
Does it set a foundation?
It's okay for getting these wrong. That's why we're doing this topic, guys.
I'm for two.
That's exactly why we're doing, just to clarify some of these things, because there is a lot of confusion for sure.
And to be honest, these questions
and she threw that one in as a bit of a trick question.
Well,
so.
The reason why I threw them in the way I did is because it is so confusing. It isn't really clear, and so I wanted to make sure that we know where we're standing.
Everybody's saying true. That it sets a foundation. That both, are they right?
Yes, you are right.
Yes, true is the right answer. Okay.
Yes, guys. So our first topic for tonight is on letter of intents. What are they? What is it?
Okay, so let's start off with that.
So
what is it to begin with?
You guys answered it in the last one. It is a foundation that both parties can go off of. So another way to say it is that it's an agreement to agree. Okay, so it's not a contract, it's not a commitment, but it's saying, let's agree to agree on these things. Now, what things? We're going to talk about that in just a little bit.
This is my intent. This is your intent. This is what my expectations are. This is what your expectations are. Let's put it down on paper. Let's start the conversation. And that's really what a letter of intent can do, is it can get that conversation going. Because a lot of times we sit down with somebody and we're like, well, what questions should I be asking? And what things should we talk about in these meetings? Well, yeah, we want to do something, but what are the details? That's what our letter of intent is for. It's to clarify that, to get that conversation going, to talk about expectations. That's the purpose of the document.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to remember with it. So like you guys are saying in the comments, Todd's saying I need a drink. Every time we talk, it's about drinks, Todd. But like Grant is saying, so yeah, it's a nice foundation to go from, but there's no guarantees. It's not binding and you can't fully count on it. But what you can count on is the fact that it's something that you do before you formalize an agreement. So it's a clarity exercise, okay? And the other thing that is that once you've done a letter of intent and you've agreed, again, a letter of intent, think of it this way, it's an agreement to agree, and you've agreed to agree, then that's when due diligence really starts for both parties, okay? So it buys you some clarity and then some time for due diligence before you formalize, okay? Yeah. So it's a tool for clarity.
Here's another way to look at it too, is if you go to, let's say you're buying a property, you're going through the closing process with a potential joint venture partner or a joint venture partner, and the lawyer, you now bring your joint venture agreement to the lawyer and say, hey, can you make this joint venture agreement for us? Well, the lawyer is going to say, what is it that you agreed to? What is it that both of you were wanting? What things should we include and not include in this agreement? I have no idea. So what really helps when forming that agreement is to have a letter of intent filled out where you say, here's our intentions. This is what we want a joint venture agreement to solidify, to make legally binding. And so it's an easier document to go through, you and your potential partner. You come to some conclusions on some questions. You now present that to your lawyer, who now makes a legally binding document, which is a joint venture agreement. But he has to have some sort of, or she has to have some sort of idea as to what your intent in this relationship is.
Yeah. And I caught your reference to Meatloaf too there, Michael. Meatloaf was Corey's first concert. Was it your first concert ever?
I believe.
And so he became a major fan. He got tickets for free from his uncle when he was like 17 and became a fan after, because he's like, oh, that guy knows how to entertain.
Oh, whatever. My goodness. Yeah, that guy had control of the crowd. That was the first time I saw it. He went, okay, left side of the stadium and right side. It was in the Commonwealth here in Edmonton, 60,000 people there. And he just controlled the stadium. I thought that was
That's why you liked it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're funny. Okay, guys. So tool for clarity, okay? It is not an agreement or a commitment. It is just an agreement to agree. What it is not, we've kind of gone through this already, but we'll go through it again. It is not binding. So just because someone signs a letter of intent doesn't mean that they're doing a deal with you. It means that they're open to and willing, they've agreed to agree to probably do a deal with you. So don't get me wrong. Once you have a letter of intent signed, that's a really good sign, because that means your relationship has progressed to a certain point. It's just that it's not binding. Okay, so it's not binding. It's not an agreement, and therefore intricate details are not needed. So base details, we're going to talk in a couple of points here, what should be included in that. But you're not going to get too intricate. And here's a lesson on that, is if you do get too intricate, if you do get too detailed, it could be confused for an agreement. It could be that you would both be bound to, even if it says letter of intent atop it. So don't get too intricate in details, because you don't want it to become binding. It's your base expectations only. It's just for clarity. So point number 3,
Okay, so that covered point number 2, what it is not.
It is not binding.
Perfect.
Okay, everyone got that? It is not binding.
But it is a legal document.
But it is a legal document, yeah.
Interesting.
Like a promise ring. I love it, Corey. Yeah, like a promise ring.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Yeah. When you think about a letter of intent and some of the things that are included in it is we're going to buy a property within this price range.
Then we're going to that number 4.
Okay, but hold on. It has to do with what we're talking about
Okay.
now.
Okay.
It has, you're going to specify certain things about a property,
Yeah.
certain things about timelines. But the point is you can't force somebody to now go out and buy a property because you have an agreement signed. You got to now go and buy this property within this price range and within this cash flow range and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's just getting down expectations and intent. You can't force somebody to follow through on what is in that document.
Yeah. So some of these things you guys are summarizing what we've been saying and clarifying, which is great. So that's awesome. Like a promise ring. It's great. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Ray. Hey, buddy. Okay. So number 3, when and how to use it. So sometimes we have people that will confuse the letter of intent as, this is our first step. So I'll send you the letter of intent and we can talk after that kind of thing. And so they'll send a blank one just so that people can kind of see what it's about. But let me just caution you on that. A letter of intent is not for at the beginning of a relationship. Your letter of intent is just going to solidify your relationship. Now, some people, a couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago now, someone said to me, oh, but I already know them. It's my cousin and my uncle. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Of course, we know them. We're talking to these people about money. Of course, we know them. But do we know them business-wise? They already trust me. That's great. Do they trust your business sense? So even when you're talking to, people that you already know, like, and trust personally, you have to get to that level with them in business as well. So it's not for them to just peruse on their own. It's not something we would just email off to someone blank or filled in. It's something that we use after trust has already been built, and it's almost like an afterthought. Once you already really feel confident that they're in, they like the idea, the proposition, that's when you're going to start to use your LOI. You want to take a question? Mel has a question.
Sure.
I thought the opposite. I thought I had to have one to move forward, not legally, but if I was doing things in the proper order. And here's the beauty of this, Mel. It's actually not even something that we have to do formally. So here's how we started out with a letter of intent. So we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to tell a couple stories of how we ended up becoming so dependent on it and seeing the real power of it. But I'll just tell this, one story was I was taking actual letters of intent forms that I had, and I would say to people, if I found that they were interested, and I'll tell you why I did this later, but if I found that they were interested, we'd start going through the letter of intent together and talking about, okay, so, what kind of property are you looking for? Some people don't want condos, for example, or some people only want a suited home or a duplex kind of, multiple doors in one property. So we'd start talking about that. And so I'd start filling out my little form because, that's what I was taught to do. And it worked great. Barry McGuire sent me off with this form to these JV meetings. And, but what ended up happening was, I was doing, I was doing 10 or 15 meetings per day. And I ran out of paper and I was in a hotel. And so I just started doing it on the napkin because I didn't even have any paper. And that came to be how we wrote up a lot of our letters of intent after that. Because, after you do one or two of them, it's pretty simple stuff. And because it's not binding and it's not a legal document and it's not formal, you don't need it to be formal. Mm-hmm. We started doing them just on a napkin. And you know what, Mel? It took a lot of the formalization out, and it was just like having a conversation with them. It made
it more relaxed, right?
Yeah.
So instead of filling out, okay, well, this is the details, this is what you want, this is what I want, and start it. Because even though we might know it's not binding and it's not, all of that kind of stuff, the person on the other side that we're filling it out in front of, or we're asking questions to, sometimes might think, oh my goodness, what am I getting myself into? Whereas Tiff said, just writing some of these details down on a napkin technically has the same power. So, you don't have to be using a letter of intent. It does not have to be one of your steps along the way, but it can certainly assist you along the way. And we're going to talk about those points a little bit later, points number 5 and 6, as to really the power behind it and how you can use it going forward. But yeah, so, absolutely.
And you guys are just recapping again. Yeah, it's not binding. It's not a promise. It's just a commit. It's just an agreement to agree. Oops, wrong one. Like an outline for an essay. Yes. Hi, Victoria, by the way. Hey. Yeah, just some simple paperwork to capture what we're working on together. Julia, enjoy your celebration. Catch us later for sure. Okay, so that is, when you use it. It's not something that goes immediately out.
Yeah, you don't want to throw it out.
Already feel that you've got a deal going, or you feel that there's a good rapport enough to move into that.
You've kind of gotten to the point where you both said, yeah, let's do something. Now let's work a little bit on those details. What is this going to look like? And that's when the letter of intent starts to come into play.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now the part about what to put in it. So what would you put in a letter of intent, guys? What do you guys put in your letters of intent? I'll let you guys lead it, and we'll put up some of your comments too on what you put in your letters of intent.
And by the way, guys, at the end of this discussion tonight, we're going to share a link where you can get a copy of one of our letters of intent.
I didn't even know we had this all set up, and Corey's like, well, we have one.
Yeah, so we'll share a link. You give us your name and your email address, and then you go to a page, you can download it right there. So you'll have a copy. It's free. There's no charge, anything like that. So just so you know, if you are wondering about that, we're going to have that at the end of the night.
Okay, so what kind of stuff? Let's see. There's a little bit of a delay, so we'll just leave it for the pros to
What would you have in your letter of intent? You're sitting down with somebody, you're saying, okay, let's do this. Let's move forward. What things do you think you should talk about at that point? So
awesome, Leslie. Each other's obligations. Yes. Time frame.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Time frame as to when you might make a purchase. Time frame as to when you might start placing deposits. Time frames as to how long the relationship and you'd be involved in that property. So there are several time frames that you could have on your letter of intent and talk about. For
sure. The strategy. Yeah. So all you guys, strategy. Whether it's a flip, a burr, a long-term hold, for sure. Yeah. So Facebook user, I feel so bad that we can't see you, but because we use the StreamYard for doing our live streams now, we can't see your names unless you give permission. So if you can give permission, Nin can throw the link in the feed, and then you can just go there and say, yes, I give permission for them to see my name. So anyways, who is responsible for what? Yes, Leslie, exactly. So I'm just going to put this one up just for fun.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
You're awesome too.
Okay. Yes, you really are. Okay. Yeah. What type of properties they're interested in. Okay. So you kind of approximate price ranges, all that kind of thing.
Who's doing
the
what?
Role of each.
Who is the working partner? Who's property managing it? All of those kinds of things. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just leave it. Let me see here. I'll just leave it on this one here. Okay. So here's some things. There's a couple different options. So you can go in and say, okay, we're going to get like a 3-bedroom house, 2 bathrooms, we can kind of do specs like that. Or you can do specs like, okay, we want a minimum cash flow of this amount, or we want a minimum ROI percentage of approximately this amount. It's kind of like a shopping list in that case, right?
We're looking in this particular area or neighborhood. We're looking in this particular price range. Exactly.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be like, let's say you say, well, I don't know what I'm going to end up with. It might be a 2-bedroom, it might be a 3-bedroom. I don't want to write that down. That's okay. If you know that in your area, you can typically get, or the area you're investing in, you can typically get $300 a month in cash flow, or $800 a month in cash flow, or 20% a year for ROI, whatever it is that you can typically get, then you can kind of say, our benchmark, our goal is this amount, right? So,
Todd, just so you know, we can see your comments, so you don't need to give permission anymore.
oh, sorry, Todd. Yeah. You only have to give that permission to StreamYard once. So
hopefully,
yes, when to sell, exactly. So, oh, there we go. Perfect. Thanks, Nin. Nin just put that link in. Timelines for purchase and timelines for sale. Okay. The splits.
What kind of percentages? Who gets what? And how is that money divided at the end?
Yeah, and you can get a little more detailed. You can say like our splits on our cash flow is going to be this much, and our splits on any equity appreciation will be this much if they're different or the same. Just remember that you need a good basis, okay? You need a basis for clarity, but you don't have to know all the answers. Like let's say that in your conversation they say they don't want as much cash flow for the first 5 years. They want it for later, and they don't want to have to pay tax on it now. So, okay, great. So what does that mean? So now do you have to figure all that out and write it all in? And you don't have to. That's for later. Again, this is non-binding. This is
kind of like a wish list, right? Here's all the things that we're hoping to get. This is the parameters that we're going to start looking for. And that's what you include on your letter of intent.
Yeah.
And again, we're going to share a copy of one that you guys are welcome to use. And some people modify them, take some things in, take some things out, but it gives you a basis to start.
Edit them, make them your own. But it is the one from Ignited, Mel. So it's the same one. You won't have to do it again. So yeah, exit strategies, ROI, and cash flow for sure. Okay, so those are some of the basis of what you're going to put in them. Okay, so you're going to take out or add to whatever you want. Now, the biggest thing that the letter of intent did for us, the biggest thing by far, quite frankly,
it was a game changer.
It was a game changer, yeah. Was it gave us confidence.
Okay, so let's set the stage. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back 15, 16 years to 2004. Okay. We are now advertising ourselves. We are starting to look for joint venture partners.
So we busted.
We were looking at properties to purchase, all of that kind of stuff. And we were going to be going out to some real estate events to meet some new people, give them our business cards, that sort of thing, set up some appointments, talk about, that sort of thing. Okay. So let's go back, 16 years. That's what the position we were in. Now, you were on your way to go to Toronto to an event in Toronto. Tiff went to events in Toronto. I went to events in BC, and
so we had a little one at home,
we were selling properties here in Edmonton or selling joint ventures here in Edmonton. And so she was on her way to Toronto, and she was getting a little bit uptight. She was like, "What am I going to talk to these people about?
A little bit.
What am I going to say? What is it that we're offering?"
So we had already paid for the flight, paid for the hotel, paid for the ticket to the event. I had already lined up a whole bunch of appointments. I was hoping to line up a few more while I was there, but I had already lined up maybe 15 or so appointments with people. And so I was all in, right? Like there was no turning back, which was a good thing.
A bunch of people knew she was going to be coming out. So they're like, "Hey, you're going to be in town. I'd love to get together with you, talk about what you're doing." So she had that all set up.
So I think the day before, 2 days before I was ready to fly out, I end up in Barry McGuire's office. So all you guys know, he's been our lawyer, our real estate lawyer forever. He does more creative deals than any lawyer, I think, in the world practically. Like he's just done so much stuff. But I went into him and I was like, I phoned him and I'm like, I don't know what to say to these people. I am offering this deal and I know how to talk to them about like whatever, hockey and whatever, but I don't know what to say to them. I am flipping out. I'm not going to be able to do this. And he was just like, "Well, of course you can do it. You know you can do it." I'm like, "No, I don't know I can do it. No, I don't think I can do it." So I was totally flipping out. And he's like, "Okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take the letter of intent," which we already had one. And he's like, you're going to take that. I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've got it." And he's just like, "And you're going to just use that. So when you get into these conversations with people, as soon as you don't know what to say, you're just going to say, okay, so you know what? I have this letter of intent here. Why don't we go through it and see if we're on the same page about things? And so that's what I did. I would sit there and I would panic and I would be totally like, talking to people, and I was super awkward, and I was like, so your intention is to buy a property? Yeah. I mean, I did it all wrong, like, in Ignited.
What not to do.
Yeah, what not to do. You've seen our presentations from stage. Maybe you saw one on our letter of intent that we used to do from stage, where we teach you what to write on a napkin and why it's better on a napkin because it's less formal. But, I was just like, okay, so as soon as I got to the point where I'm like,
now what? Now what do I say?
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know where to go next. And like, I knew I needed to be in control of the conversation, because if you just like let them control the conversation, then, you're not leading, and here you're supposed to be the pro and the expert, and you're supposed to be the one solving their problems, and you're the one sitting there. So anyways, that's what we use the letter of intent for.
What did it do? Here's the summary of all of that in that story. And what we learned on that occasion was that it gave Tiffany the confidence to sit there. It gave her backup questions. So, if the conversation started getting stale, or there was a quiet point and she didn't know what to say, she had a list of questions she could kind of go through with that person and keep the conversation going. So it gave her the confidence, kind of knowing that she had something in her back pocket to pull out, not literally, but to pull out when she needed it. And it gave her that confidence. Exactly.
I said afterwards, like when I thought about it a couple of years later, I was like, because so our little guy at the time was 3, and he had his blankie. He took that thing with him everywhere. And it was like it was my blankie, because it was my security blanket. It was my, anytime I didn't know what to do next, I just would say, okay, well, you know what? I have this letter of intent. Why don't we go through it and see if we can get some clarity on what you're looking for? Again, it's not so I can get a commitment from you. Mm-hmm. It's I'm of service to you. I'm trying to find what I can, do for you, and let me know if this, let's start going through it. So, yes, we're going to share it in just a little bit. Katie, how do you know that it's Katie?
Nin can see, because she's following on Facebook. We just can't see.
Okay, because we're on StreamYard. So, Katie, if you want for us to be able to see your name, just hit that StreamYard link.
So what's the point? It can give you confidence too. It's something you can have in your back pocket. It's something that is just there as a backup if you need it. And like Tiff said, eventually you're going to, you look through this 10 times, you go through it a few times, you're going to know what questions are on there. You don't actually even need to pull it out anymore. You kind of know the topics you need to cover. You can fill it out on a napkin. You can write it on a scrap piece of paper. It doesn't really matter. Now, one pro tip that I'll add to that is we always followed up those conversations with a follow-up email summarizing all of the main points. So that's a pro tip to remember, guys. It gave her that basis. It gave her confidence. Absolutely.
So it gave me a format to follow. It gave me permission to ask the tough questions, like, what ROI do you want? What amount of cash flow do you want? How much money do you have to put into this? Are you going to be able to qualify on this? It gave me permission to ask all this. But what I really liked, 2 things I really liked, was that I didn't have to remember to ask all the questions. So if I was sitting there and my brain was, bouncing like it always does, I didn't have to leave there and go, oh my goodness, I forgot to ask them their timeline. Oh my goodness, I forgot to ask them, what they wanted for ROI, or how much cash flow, or what area they're looking at. Oh, I don't even know, I don't have to go through all that, because I had it right in front of me. It was just like, fill in the form and, you're good to go. So that really probably is one of the best things that it did for me, but also it allowed me to see where they were at. I could then, go through, and when we got talking about certain points, if they kind of went, I'm just really nervous about, a condo, because the condo fees that we were in, then they gave us an assessment and it was a $10,000 bill. And so I now know, okay, I'm not going to be getting them a condo, right? I'm going to mental note that. But it just allows you to see where they're at. How are they feeling when you start talking about cash flow or splits of different things, a timeline? You just really can come together and get on the same page.
Yeah.
And it's super powerful for clarity for them and for you.
Absolutely. Because you know what? When people start wondering these questions, like they're going to be thinking this stuff and wondering, when are we going to talk about this? When am I going to get this clarified? They want to know the answers to these questions just as much as you do. So, going through this together, even if it's formal or informal, kind of going through it together helps both parties feel safe. Both parties feel like they're on the same page. And when you get that connection, you're both on the same page, then that's when everything can start moving so much faster, because these are all stuff that you have to have done anyways. You have to have this stuff figured out anyways. But if you can figure it out in a timely manner, it just speeds up the whole pace of getting things going.
Yeah. Awesome. So I love that. Yeah. Pro tips. Nin. Okay. So that's why it gave us confidence. So I'll tell you what, after a little while of using it, we went to the napkin version, as we call it. And we just started writing it on a napkin, because you start to understand what you need to find out from these people. And so you can go less formal at that point. And it seems a little bit less contrived as well, like just more, whatever, but you can do that at that point. But at the beginning, when you still need your cuddly little blankie, use it. It's gold. And he used it too on his stuff. It just gives you that clarity. So how though does that solidify a JV? How does it solidify somebody's commitment?
Here's the way that I would answer that question. So it can solidify a joint venture because your joint venture partner, if you're the working partner and you bring out a letter of intent or you start asking these questions, your money partner immediately is going to feel taken care of. If this is done properly, your money partner is going to feel like they are covering all the bases. And you know what? This early in the relationship, I can feel like my money is going to be taken care of because they know the questions to ask. And when your money partner feels that safety, that you're covering the basis and you are asking the right questions, then they feel so much freer to just move forward with you.
Yeah.
You're taking the questions that they're going to ask anyways, and you're putting them all out front, and you're kind of saying, let's solve all of this. Let's get this out. Let's make this work. Yeah. And that's number one, what it can do into solidifying a joint venture relationship.
So our job as working partners for our joint venture partners, for our money partners, is to make their life easier. That's our job. That's what we do. We say, listen, we can invest together and I'll be your gopher. So if we come into a joint venture meeting and we're all over the place and we're scattered and we don't know what to ask and we don't move the conversation forward and we don't take control of that conversation, even when we're feeling like, somebody help me. If we don't do those things, they're not going to have confidence in us, because how we do one thing is often how we do all things. Yeah. So this letter of intent does all of that for you. So here's the other thing it does. We talked about this a little bit already, but it really separates the boys from the men, the sheep from the goats, the whatever, the wheat from the chaff, whatever you want to say. But it really shows you who's on board and who's not. So as you start going through this document, you're going to start seeing those that are really like into it are, they're leaning forward, they're talking to you, they're interested, they're, okay, what else? Oh, what about this? And what about that? And they're really into it. When they are not ready and maybe don't want to say it, or maybe there's still a lot of fear, you're going to know by going through this conversation with them.
Yeah.
Because, and again, that's why we don't recommend you just sending it off to them by email. It's a conversation piece. They start either freaking out. They either get freaked right out by this thing, like, holy crap, this person's wanting me to buy a property tomorrow and I'm so not ready. Or they get really engaged. Mm-hmm. And so it's clarifying in expectations and roles and all that stuff, but it's also very clarifying as to whether or not you have a really serious person on the line, or someone that's going to need a little bit more time, or someone that you don't want to deal with. I mean, if they're bouncing all over the place, I had that too.
It's a good filter. It's a filter for you too, because you are going to, and I know for some of you that are just starting out, in looking for joint venture funds or partnering with people in real estate, you don't believe it yet. But for those of you that have started to see the transition of people actually wanting to invest with you, there's a point where it comes that there's going to be a lot of people that want to invest with you, and you have to filter them. You have to say, you know what, this person here is going to be too much of a headache for me. They want to micromanage everything, or whatever your basis is. But it acts as a filter for you and for the money partner. So it's really beneficial for both of you. Yeah.
Awesome, Ray. Thanks for that. Frickin' gold tonight. Okay, so then Corey talked about this. It shows that you're systemized. You have a plan. You've got stuff in order. You're going to take good care of them. And my last point here is that it gives you, if you can get through the LOI and you can start nailing everything down, you get to the end of it. And again, you don't have to get too detailed. The one that we're sending out later tonight, for any of you that need one, Ignited, you already have it. But for any of you that need one, you can edit it. It has a lot more in it than you need to have. You can just pare it down to the bare basics if you want. But what that does is it gives you permission to move forward. Because remember, and the way you can explain it to your joint venture partners is, this is an agreement on what we agree on. So at the end of it, you can then say to them, so if I'm able to find all of these things within this timeline that meet all of this criteria, we're buying a property, aren't we?
Exciting,
yeah. And get them excited and get them going, I think so. Yeah, I think we are. And that gives you permission. Now, what is it permission to do? It's to get moving, to get some properties in the line, to get some due diligence done. It's not permission to go spend their money, but it is permission to get rolling on what you agreed on. It's permission for you to then start saying to them, okay, so next steps would be, and this is a total other training, but next steps are like, okay, well, this is what I'll need from you in order to get moving. And that's when you really get that commitment. That's when you get that commitment. Your letter of intent is not a commitment. And that's something we hear a lot of, and a lot of confusion around. Last week we had someone who was extremely upset because a joint venture partner, they're from the States. They're not in our group. Well, maybe they are now, but they the person didn't follow through on their letter of intent. But that's not what it is. It's not a commitment. They didn't have to follow through on that.
Yeah.
So guys, that is the letter of intent training. So let us know if you have any questions.
So Solomar, what do you do
awesome.
if they do not want to say too much? That's the point where you just continue the conversation. Maybe you might have introduced it a little too early, or maybe they're not quite ready for it yet. So you just continue the conversation, and you can slowly ask some of the questions along the way, whether that's by email or whether that's however you're communicating. And just, instead of laying it all out on them at once, just slowly start getting some of those answers. And if you have them written down, you're taking notes, you're keeping that compiled, you can pretty much have a letter of intent compiled without somebody even really knowing, and then you can share it with them at that point. So just keep the conversation going. If they're not ready for it yet, that's okay. Keep it going.
Corey, oh, sorry. Oh yeah, there. I'm like, Cheryl, how'd that happen? So Corey, I think it would hold up in court to decipher intent. So interesting, there's a couple of years ago in Ontario, a letter of intent was actually used to in a lawsuit that said, hey, they signed the letter of intent and then they backed out. And the letter of intent was extremely detailed. It was almost like a contract. And then they backed out. But the real change kind of part that made the letter of intent, binding in that case, which is not, that was pretty unprecedented. But the thing that, to my understanding, made it actually binding was the fact that they then started following through on those things and made announcements. So like in this case, it was to sell a business. So I'm retiring and here's the new owner. He introduced them to the, company employees and that sort of thing. And so the court came back and said, yeah, one court said no, I believe, and then another court said, yeah, no, it is binding. This was a contract, and you even announced it and introduced it. So the point here is, for us, we don't get too detailed. It's not a contract. A lot of people have taken the LOI and made it really detailed and added a bunch of stuff. Yes, edit it, make it your own, but you certainly don't need to. You're just covering basics, okay? Remember that. It's just basics. And in that case, then it's, again, what it's intended to be, which is just an agreement to agree.
So Nin, if you're able, if you could share the link for those of you that want to have a copy of a sample letter of intent, something that you can build yours off of. Nin is going to share a link, and you just click on the link, and then you can download the one that we use, the one that we recommend using, because it has all those questions that we've been talking about that you need those answers to. So Nin will share that. There we go. It's in the feed already. You click on the link, and I don't know if you can click on the.
I don't think so.
On that, but yeah, the link in the feed, and it'll bring you where you enter your name and email address, and bang, the next page, you can download it straight from there. Okay. So hopefully that helps, guys. Hopefully this clarifies a little bit about what the letter of intent is,
Wendy.
When to use it, what it isn't, and all the things involved with it, and how it can be such a confidence builder for you when it comes to joint venturing.
Everyone seemed to really like this tonight, which is awesome. I'm really glad. Timely training. Thanks. This is awesome. Timely. This is good timing for me. Thank you. This is so valuable. Perfect timing. So that's awesome. Let me just say, guys, if there's other things that you need training on, we're always racking our brains on what we're going to do next for Tactical Tuesday. So if there's other ideas that you have that you're like, hey, I need this, even if it's kind of last minute, like out of the last 5 or 6 Tactical Tuesdays, we've moved our schedule, what we were going to be doing, to do something that is needed. Like this came out of, something from last week. So, yeah, let us know what kind of training you guys need and want, and we'll make sure to get it up. All right. Okay.
Awesome. Well, hope that helps, guys.
Remember
to use it as a tool in your toolbox, and it can be successful for you guys too, just like it was for us.
Yeah. See all you Igniteds over in our laser
in about 10, 12 minutes.
10 minutes.
All right. Take care, guys.